Hello, and welcome to Let's Talk About It with topics and guests from near and far. I'm January McKay, your host, and today we have an exclusive show for you. My guest is Mr. Carl Gamble, the author of My Blue Yonder, an important memoir on his days as a pilot in Vietnam. I will be right back with my guest. Hello, and welcome to Let's Talk About It, bringing topics and guests from near and far. My guest today is Captain Carl Gamble, the author of My Blue Yonder. Captain Gamble is the first African American pilot to be inducted in the Madison County, Alabama Hall of Heroes in its 44-year history. He's a motivational speaker for youth, received the Distinguished Flying Cross. Captain Gamble is a former U.S. Air Force captain and veteran of the Vietnam War. From supersonic aircraft to airline captain of jumbo jets, Captain Gamble's career includes flying a plane destroyed by enemy fire and an airliner hijacked by an air pirate. Growing up, Captain Gamble was fascinated by the F-84 Thunder jets that belonged to the 31st Fighter Wing Station at Turner Air Force Base near Albany, Georgia. He told his mother he was going to be a pilot one day, and that's exactly what he became. Welcome, Captain Gamble, to Let's Talk About It. Thank you for joining me. Now, where do we start with your story? Your journey is so fascinating. It's a mix of exciting, intriguing, dangerous, and scary all in one. So let's talk about it. Where were you born and raised?
I was born in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I grew up in Madison, Alabama.
Okay. What schools did you attend growing up?
Well, my first school was Madison Junior High. It went from the first through the ninth grade. And the school actually burned down while I was in the first grade. So we had to go to school in churches while they built the new school. We had 4 churches. The first church had the first and second grade. So when you were promoted to the second grade, you just walked across the aisle. The second school had the third and the fourth grade. The third school had the fifth and the sixth grade. And the last school had the seventh, eighth, and ninth grade. It took them 5 years to build a new school. I was in the fifth grade when I went to West Madison Junior High. From junior high, I went to high school at County Training. It was the only school for Madison County. We left home at 6:30 in the morning to arrive at school at 8 a.m. Of course, now if you lived in Huntsville, they did have a city school, which was Council High. So from high school, I followed my dream and went to Tennessee State University, majored in aviation technology, and I graduated in 1961 with a degree in aviation technology and my AFROTC commission.
That was very interesting. And so, what was it like attending school when you were younger? Were the schools segregated, and when you say you had to get up at 6:30 in the morning to get to school by 8 a.m., what was like your mode of transportation to get there?
Well, yes, the schools were segregated. As a matter of fact, when our school burned down, the junior high school, we walked a mile in the cold and the rain right by the white school. And we had bus transportation from each little township to go to council training. And they all had to travel, like I did, an hour and a half to get to school. There were several townships like Tony, Triana, Harvey, Madison. We all rode different buses to get to council training on time.
Wow. And so when you attended college, did you still have to deal with segregation at that time, or what was it like attending college or even being accepted into college during that time? And I know you went to Tennessee because of the aviation program, but was there any other reason why you decided to attend that school versus another school with an aviation program?
Well, I went to Tennessee State because it was an avenue to get your commission and go into the military and get your pilot's wings. General aviation was really not known to Black pilots at that time. Most of the Black pilots came through the Air Force. Most of them came from either Tuskegee University, Tennessee State, or other schools like that. So I didn't have a lot of knowledge of other colleges. It was so segregated that I didn't have any knowledge of going to another school that offered me an AFROTC and how to get into it. Didn't have the avenues that you have today. So yes, it was very segregated.
Okay. And, it really sounds like you knew from a very young age what it was that you wanted to do, and you created a path for yourself to get there. And so, what is it that made you want to become a pilot?
Well, growing up in Madison, we had to pick cotton for our livelihood. And while picking cotton, I was mesmerized by the F-84s who flew right over the cotton fields, very low and right at the speed of sound. Sometimes you would see them and sometimes you wouldn't, but you always knew it was them because of the sonic boom. As a matter of fact, I remember if my mom was sitting on the porch and they flew over the house, she would run inside and look into her china cabinet and see if any of her glasses had been cracked. So I told her that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to become a pilot and fly those airplanes. And her response to me was, if you commit yourself, you work hard, you believe in your faith, you can become a pilot. But there are mountains and valleys in whatever you choose to do. Life is not always fair and it's not always pretty. So when you get knocked down, you have to get back up, but don't let nobody tell you no. And most of all, don't quit when it gets hard, because winners never quit and quitters never win. And she was a big motivational factor in me continuing to pursue my dream.
Wow. And there was also like a quote or scripture that she shared with you that I read in your book, right? What was that, and how instrumental was holding on to that in you following through and committing to becoming a pilot?
Well, as a matter of fact, when we talk about mountain and valleys, life not a straight line. My first, I guess you can call it mountain, molehill, whatever, was taking my physical for advanced ROTC. I was not only short growing up, but I was skinny. So when it came time to take the physical, I was 2 pounds underweight for my height. That means I couldn't get into advanced ROTC. So the technician was willing to work with me. He said, go and find somebody about your stature, take this paperwork and have them go and weigh for you, bring it back, sign it, and we'll have you into advanced ROTC. That was the mountain of the molehill, but the valley came when I took my eye exam, and I was told that I had astigmatism. So it meant that I didn't have 20/20 in each eye. And for flight school, you have to have 20/20 vision in each eye. However, I kept the faith. When I went to summer camp, I took another eye exam and I found out that I didn't have astigmatism, that I did qualify for pilot training. But since I was so late qualifying, they didn't have a pilot training slot for me. So they made a transportation officer out of me and sent me to Shaw Air Force Base. About a year later, I got my pilot training slot to Laughlin Air Force Base in Del Rio, Texas.
And is that where you did your pilot training?
That's where I did pilot training. Pilot training is 56 weeks. It is one of the hardest things that I've ever done. As a matter of fact, it's no joke. We started out with 96 classmates and we graduated 62. So it is about 33 to 36% fail rate. 1 out of every 3 pilot training students will fail. Some for academics, some for flying skills, and then some for medicals.
So what do you think it was that did not cause you to fail, but to pass pilot training? If it was, considering the climate of the country at that time and your own personal challenges, what was it that made you pass and not fail?
I think my commitment, and there were 800 pilot trainees at Laughlin. Only 8 out of the 800 were African Americans. And out of those 8, we lost 4. 4 didn't make it. So I was just determined and remembering everything that my mom had told me. You believe you can do it, you work hard. So I worked as hard as I could. And I believed in my faith. And I knew that I was going to be a pilot. So I did everything I could, and I never gave up on it.
Can you tell us about how you got to Vietnam and what it was like serving there?
Yes, from pilot training, I was signed to the 9th Special Operations Squadron in Da Nang, Vietnam. Our mission was to drop leaflets and tell the enemy to give up, turn in his rifle for food. So since we weren't dropping bombs, we were dropping leaflets. We had a nickname. They call us I guess I can say this, the bombers. Anyway, I flew 244 combat missions. And one of those missions